I've had something bothering me for a while. I don't usually talk about this, since I've never thought anyone would really believe me. I still don't think anyone will believe me. However, even if you do, it won't help much. I know this place is more so intended for fictional stories of horror rather than real life accounts. No matter how realistic they are written, they are always acknowledged as fiction. However, I don't have anywhere else I can really post this without people looking past this tale or labeling me as insane. Those reading this will most likely view this as a work of fiction, so I guess I may as well play along with it and add some pizzazz to it. I guess I'm more so doing this to get something off my chest, more so than make some kind of cry for help. I'm not an experienced writer, so please bear with me. I never intended to pursue a job in it. It happened a while ago, back when I was in high school. I was a fan of science fiction and the otherworldly, more so than horror, but I still liked horror to an extent. However, I don't really like horror anymore. No, I have more of a disdain for it. I feel repelled when it comes to horror. I can't watch a horror movie without feeling some kind of anger or disgust these days. To be honest, I find it hard to enjoy certain works of science fiction too, due to similar reasons. Films, novels, television, etc. kinda act as a PTSD fuel and can make me feel stress and depression. Not like that has gone away though. Anyway, I'm going off topic, so let's get back to the topic at hand. I was a major fan of science fiction. I liked works of fiction regarding space, laser guns, robots, aliens, etc. One genre I liked was time travel. I used to watch a lot of Doctor Who as a kid. It was hard finding fans of the show in my high school though. Most conversations usually involve video games, comic books, and the such. Finding people who were into Dungeons and Dragons was hard enough, let alone finding fans of BBC's shows. The kids of my school usually gossiped about creepypasta, SCP, and internet horror when that stuff was more trending. I'd find it interesting in my early days, but as I got older, sometimes it got a little draining when kids raved on about it for hours on end. One day I went back into being interested in it though, and wondered how much was real and how much was faked. I'd go from reading horror stories to looking into actual believed folkloric tales of ghosts and monsters. I remember not being able to sleep certain nights and sometimes having nightmares because of such. However, I always had my parents to keep me feeling safe. And one day, something clicked. I realized something that I thought was unheard of. Does anyone actually believe in time travel to the extent that urban myths exist across the internet? Or is it a niche belief? Out of curiosity, I just had to see for myself. I had to see if something close to a real-life Doctor Who existed. Well, with a quick search, I pretty much found it immediately. However, at times it took scrolling through garbage to find anything of actual good substance. Stories of people existing in pictures across different times in history, countless YouTube videos and Reddit posts. I managed to find a Reddit post after some painstaking searches and scrolling. I found a lot of stuff on there, fascinating at the time. It was hard to tell which was real or faked. A lot of them seemed very genuine, however some were obviously faked through bad photoshopping. However, I'd wind up making a discovery that would mess me up in the head for life. Through some clicking, I saw something with a title that immediately caught my interest. I clicked on it and was immediately filled with horror. What I saw was so shockingly disturbing. It made me want to vomit up what I had for lunch and breakfast. It was a dead body, but not just a dead body. It was a mutilated dead body. Barely recognizable as a human apart from some facial features. Almost all of its bones were broken, like the body was trampled on and smashed its bones like glass. Bones were sticking out where they shouldn't be and penetrated the flesh and skin. Skin had been peeled off the flesh and bone in a lot of the areas of the body. Anything that was left was flamed or melted from being burned by fire or acid or God knows what. Its right eye looked like it had been peeled out, and both eyes looked as though that they were crying blood. Certain teeth seemed to have been pulled out, and the entire right arm was missing. Its guts had been spilled out and laid on top and around it. It felt like the body was looking directly at me, which made it worse. To this day, I've never seen anything so disgusting and visceral. It took me a moment to process it, but after a while I couldn't look anymore. I closed the browser and walked away from my computer, vomiting into the toilet and then proceeding to have a panic attack and cradle up on my bed crying. Eventually I'd delete my entire history and spend the next few days off my computer. However, there was something else to the site that deeply disturbed me, something that made it far worse. There was something else to the picture extremely disturbing that made me feel lied to and betrayed. Something out of this world, like someone or something was playing a joke on me. I wonder if I'd been cursed or something like all those other internet horror stories. I'd think up a way to explain this to my parents, but then I realized they'd turn on me and view me as insane. Probably send me to a mental psych ward with an actual crazy people, like I saw in all those movies. Every day from home to school, I always felt something sinister was following me. I always had this feeling I couldn't shake that I was being stalked. I didn't know who to trust. I'd always look over my shoulder thinking that the person walking home was following me. Always freezing up, feeling the driver of the car was stalking me. I always found it hard to sleep in the dark since then and wound up hating the dark in general due to be unsure what could be hiding there for me. Everything in general that snuck up on me made me jump at that point. I fell into a state of constant stress and depression. Eventually I'd calmed down after several attempts lying to myself, telling myself it was some kind of sick prank. However, even then, every time I hung out with my friends, I was always smiling through my teeth and forcing laughter. I found it hard watching what I normally enjoyed and felt disgust to some things I used to like, going as far to throw out certain DVDs or video games I had. I wanted to give myself a sanctuary to escape everything, a place of comfort nothing could penetrate. But even that didn't work, because you can't escape what is simply life. Eventually I caved in. I did research of this thing to my dismay. I never had to look back into the Reddit, because the name of the body was pretty much engraved into my mind. I kept asking myself, how did something like that even wind up on Reddit? Until eventually, I found what I was looking for. I just had to see the grave of this body myself. And I did just that. Oddly, the body was within the same state, and only took a few hours to get to. It was close to the wartime memorial where people would gather to commemorate the dead that died during service. Eventually, after some tedious walking around and checking gravestones, I found it. What I saw confirmed everything. I couldn't accept it. I wanted it to be a sick joke, but it wasn't. It was real. I wound up feeling disoriented and threw up several times as I tried to waddle out of the graveyard, grabbing onto nearby objects for support as the world shaked around me. I'd wind up collapsing onto the ground and passing out on the spot. I woke up thinking it was a dream for a brief second before realizing I wasn't in my bedroom, but an ambulance. Someone must have found me and got help out of concern, having no idea what happened to me. I'd wind up being both scolded and cared for by my parents. The scolding part only stressed me out more. Eventually I'd spill out what happened and wound up getting confused and concerned expressions as if I was going insane like I had predicted. I wound up getting therapy, but on the downside, wound up being labelled as a schizo. I'd be given these pills to keep my depression and schizophrenia in check. However, some of the medication wound up causing more damage than good since I didn't even suffer some of the symptoms. I wound up losing the ability to function like a normal person, on the most part for a few years, until I wound up lying to my parents in my doctor's face. Luckily, it paid off, and I was taken off some of the medication, and other doses were shrunk down in size. In the end, I gave up. I realized this fight wasn't worth fighting. I mean, that didn't stop the nightmares or constant paranoia. I just stopped trying to fight it and pretended I wasn't experiencing it anymore. I wound up passing high school and would spend the next few years in college, after being pushed by my father to seek a career of substance. I didn't really make much friends as a young adult, so I mostly kept to myself. Talking generally felt like an effort, and mostly shut myself off from society. However, one student would eventually approach me. He was top of his grade and teacher's pet. I never really talked with him though. He never caught my attention, and I never thought we'd click personally wise. I mean, I felt I didn't really click with anyone anymore. So when he approached me, it fell out of the blue. He told me about a project he had. He had a passion for quantum physics and exploring everything beyond the third dimension. He told me the project he was working on was quite laughable and seen as unrealistic. He told me what it was and that he never expected it to exceed. It was more so for fun and the result of his passion for science fiction. As little faith for his work as he had, I knew in the end it was going to succeed. I knew because what he was working on was time travel, and the man in the picture, and whom graves that I'd visited, was me. The picture was from World War II, and I had died as a prisoner of war by the Nazi Empire. Judging from the picture, I will die in the most excruciating and long-lasting way I can imagine, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Because this confirms that no matter how much I try, no matter how much I fight, I will never escape, because fate is written in stone, and I will die like destiny intended. The scariest monster is fate. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Dr. Medic here. This story was requested by a friend of mine whose other friend had written this story by the name of Jordan Jacobs 177. It was a very interesting read. Thank you for letting me partake in this. I hope you enjoyed, and if people enjoy this sort of content alongside the audiobooks, I'd record more if you want to. If anyone has any requests, just let me know. Anyway, hope you all have a good day. Thanks for watching.